All right, as the nation reflects on the issue of illegal mining, questions are regularly raised about the origins of this scourge. Experts point to the non-sustainable nature of large-scale mining and the impact on individuals and communities when these companies improperly terminate operations. Joining us to discuss the responsibilities of mining companies when shutting down operations is Uthimna Gqangeni of the South African Mining Youth Association, and she joins us now via our video link. Uthimna, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. Firstly, before we get into the issue around artisanal mining in the country, maybe let's get your reaction when it comes to what has transpired in the Northwest when it comes to the Buffelsfontein mine and seeing at least almost 2,000 of illegal miners being brought back to surface, and now with the result of almost 80 miners being presumed as dead.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. It is very important to acknowledge that this is quite a nuanced conversation. It is not really black and white in how we can engage with it. In as much as we can acknowledge and notice that this is something that is deeply affecting our country, and this is something that is deeply both problematic, but it is also an opportunity, I think, for both our communities, our private sector, as well as the government to take initiative and take this situation a bit more seriously and give it a bit more thought and depth as to how do we actually engage and properly regulate the closure of mining of large-scale mines, and the responsibility that these huge corporations have, as well as the responsibility that we as the team have. It is quite heartbreaking to see personally and to watch, but I think it is an opportunity for a huge intervention from us as a collective and as a country.
And where do you think the problems really emanate from? Where do they lie when it comes to, dealing with illegal mining? And of course, the use of, these disused mines in our communities?
I think it's very important to understand that illegal mining is not something that can be supported. It is entirely a criminal act, and it is something that the relevant bodies have actually engaged with decisively, which is something that we do commend. However, it is something that also requires a lot more intervention from both the government as well as these institutions. Illegal mining itself is something that is really, really bad, but it does raise a bigger question as to what actually is leading us to this point. What is and how do we circumvent it? How do we make it, number one, impossible for this kind of act to be sustainable at such a scale that it is, given the sheer number and sheer volume of people who are actually discovered from the mines. I think the sheer volume means that there is an actual deep problem that we have to decisively engage with as a country.
And of course, this is illegal, which is what you have also highlighted. It is criminality, what we are finding out in the communities, especially, mining towns and mining communities. And one would say, who should take responsibility for the issues that we are seeing now and what has transpired from of these abandoned mines? Of course, it was a business. It was a thriving business at some point, but most of them have just been left abandoned. Who should take responsibility, for the problems in which we are seeing now?
All of us, we collectively have to take responsibility as a country. I think we hold varying degrees of responsibility as to how we have gotten here. But I think it is very important to understand that now that we have identified that the problem is here, rather than dwell on the issues or dwell on a blame game, we have to actually come to terms with figuring out how did we even end up here to begin with. So put in place measures that will ensure that this does not happen. So I think it will take a collaborative effort from both regulatory bodies within government as well as within these big, large-scale companies and mining. We need to figure out and review the strategies and the processes and the standards that are set in place with what it actually means to close down a mine, how to properly close, how to properly close a shop, and how do you actually receive a certification that actually says out loud or qualifies you as have succeeded in completing such an action.
And Uthimna, I mean, I hear you saying that, you know, we should all collectively take, you know, the responsibility of the problems we are seeing from these abandoned mines. But what roles can companies play, especially, you know, companies who are mining at some point? What role can they play to ensure that, well, these mines are sealed off and that we don't see criminal activity taking place in our communities?
I think each body that has not taken into the necessary steps to ensure that a mine is successfully closed is actually infringing, or rather is infringing on their duty that the legislative duties that have been set out, because each company is responsible to ensure that they have successfully closed down the shafts and properly regulated as well as rehabilitated the space, and as well as the communities and the spaces that they are within. So I think these mining companies need to be held more accountable, but it's something that also turns back again to us as a collective and as a country. It's not something that can be entirely up to or left up to businesses. It's something that we need to establish a proper standard by which we ensure that each person receives a certificate that confirms that they have successfully closed down these mines.
And in holding, you know, some of these mining companies accountable, you know, for, you know, abandoning some of these mines, is government doing enough really when it comes to ensuring that it does hold mining companies accountable?
I think we can acknowledge and commend the work that the government has began and the steps that they have taken towards this issue at hand. But however, there are more initiatives that could be done, most especially looking into involving more of the youth, as well as ensuring that we capacitate the youth and we involve them as well within these process of ensuring that these spaces are properly and as well as properly looked after. It's something, there's initiatives that could be looked at that ensures that even with this kind of outcome, whereby we have so many people resorting to this kind of thing, we would provide an opportunity then for our young people to not have this be their own or their only option on how to sustain themselves, because when these large-scale mines close, these hit the local economies the highest way, in the highest level. More specifically, when you look at the youth, young people are the backbone of our economy, and they are the most undervalued and underappreciated when it comes to establishing these kinds of initiatives, which then will result in issues like we are seeing all over the country. So I think we need to do more in establishing establishing the proper structures and systems to ensure that not only do we equip our youth and utilize their skills, we provide opportunities for them to properly grow within this designation.
Uthimna, thank you so much for your time and for your insight. That is Uthimna Gqangeni from the South African Mining Youth Association, just giving us an insight there when it comes to issues around illegal miners and, of course, artisanal mining in the country.